Joining us on the line now are Enda and Maria, co-founders of Ibernia, a bilingual publishing company based on their shared interest in Spanish culture. Though their publishing company is relatively new, they've published 5 books this year, with 5 more due next year. They also have a podcast and have done several walking tours talking about the history of the Irish in Madrid. Together, they've written 3 books, a book of essays and 2 novels. They also offer editing and translation services. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's great to have you both with us. So, Enda, starting with you, tell us about your background then and what brought you to Spain.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us on the show. It's a pleasure for both of us. And just as you mentioned in your intro, I'm from Ireland. I came over to Madrid in 2012, where I met Maria working in an English academy. And just through a mutual interest in culture, we started building up different aspects of our portfolio, I guess you could say, together. We started off with our podcast, and then we went to tours, which we're still doing. And then through translating a document, we had a contact who was looking for somebody to write a book, which is our first book, ultimately, Fake News. So a bit of, luck in that aspect. And that really launched us on our writing journey. And ever since then, we've been looking for opportunities, or by talking to each other, we come up with ideas and we take it from there and we explore different things together.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell us a bit about your podcast.
Well, our podcast, I have to give the credit to Maria. It was her idea originally. Madrid's just this amazing place where you have a lot of culture. Because you have obviously the big hitters like the Prado, but there are hospitals, there's B&Bs, there's these small little places that have photographs and exhibitions, and it might be just 2 photographs, but it's an exhibition, and it's quite honestly the most cultural place I've ever lived in. And as our kind of tagline says, it's talking about culture inside and outside Madrid. But over time, we actually got contacted by a guy called Snow Owl, who's a Colombian singer, and he's part of Hans Zimmer's orchestra. And just out of the blue, he sends us a message on Facebook saying, can I be interviewed by you guys? And that kind of started our other route on the podcast, which is interviewing people. And we've been very lucky with the people we've spoken to. We've had Irene Vallejo on the podcast, who of course is the biggest writer in the world in many senses, and all manner of people. And for us, just this idea of communication and connecting with people, either through the books or through the podcast, as corny as that may sound, it's just something that's very fulfilling, and getting to hear people's stories, especially if they're from an immigrant background as well. I'm Irish, of course, but Maria is from Leon, so she's not even from Madrid either. So, just getting these different perspectives from people who don't come from here, how they arrived here and how they're finding it is of great interest to us.
Yeah, nice. So, Maria, how long have you been in Madrid for?
Well, actually, I've lived in Madrid most of my life, say for a few years abroad. And then, but, my first few years were in Leon, and I was born there. And all my first memories are from the north of Spain. So, I feel like I'm from there.
And how does Leon compare to Madrid?
Oh, it's very different. Really different. First of all, it's a lot smaller, far, far smaller, and about a tenth or something. It's more of a provincial town, and obviously compared to the capital, it's different, but it still has a lot of cultural things to offer, and it's got a very vibrant, cultural scene, and there are lots of things to do and to see. So I think, even now we collaborate with some bookshops there, and they do a lot of activities. So I think, both places are nice in their own way, but obviously Madrid has a huge cultural offer and lots of nationalities as well.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a bit more about your publishing company. When did you set it up and what were you trying to achieve?
So we started last October. So it's gonna be a year soon, but it feels a lot longer because we've been doing so much. And well, we've been working for years as translators, as Enda mentioned. We've also been writers, and Enda worked for a few years in a publishing company as well, editing. And I kept on going with translation. So we just kept on finding ourselves, doing these jobs for other people, and more often than not, being frustrated at how we think we could do things and support writers and just make books more successful for things that were out of our control. So we thought, look, why not? Like every time we think of something, why don't we turn it into a reality and just set up our own publishers and do everything we do but for ourselves. So our real aim was to create a publishers that was small, was very close to the writer, but also had the means to make a book successful in the bigger scene, and promote it and really work with the writer and really be invested into making it a success for them.
Yeah, no, it makes sense doing it yourself instead of working for other people when you've got all that experience. That's great. So how do you decide what books to publish? Do you have a kind of criteria? Does it have to be related to Spanish culture in some way?
We get this question asked a lot, followed closely by how do we write together, because people always get confused by that as well. But in terms of like how we choose what to publish, it's a very good question, and it's difficult to answer because primarily, of course, our focus is on Irish and Spanish culture because, we feel that there's a lot of links between both countries. We care very passionately about that and exploring that. That being said, however, again, going back to cliche territory here maybe, but if it's a good book, we're interested in publishing it because, like you mentioned at the top of the show, that we published 5 books, but going forward now in September, we have a book that we just released. The launch is next Friday, actually. It's one of our friends and contacts, a wonderful poet and writer, which looks at the local dialect in Gibraltar, which is influenced by English and Spanish. While in October, there's a book that's basically a look at women who lived during and after the time of Franco. Do those books have Irish links and Spanish links? Well, they have Spanish links by virtue of where they've been published, and of course, the Interviews with Women does take place in Spain, but they're books that are sufficiently interesting in and of themselves for us to be interested in publishing them. So for us as great readers and people who love books, it's very hard to turn those stories down when we come across them. So even though they don't have that Irish-Spanish link, we are very much motivated to kind of tell those stories as well. And, apart from those, we have a book based in Japan coming after Christmas as well. So it's something that if someone came to us with a link between Ireland and Spain in the book, sure, that would be amazing. We'd be really into that, but it's not a prerequisite in any way.
Yeah, fair enough. And can you tell us a bit more about your latest novel that you've written together?
Oh, that would be Crater. No, yes, La Vida en el Crater. That's a nice novel that myself and Maria co-wrote. And it's basically the protagonist is an Irish guy in Madrid, and the objective of this is to look at the stories of the moon, because the moon has craters named after people, which we don't really take into consideration, or we don't have consciously in our minds. So kind of carrying on from our other books as well, there's a historical lens there, there's a social, cultural perspective as well. And for us, it was kind of fun just to, we look up at the moon, but the moon's looking back at us as well. But, because it has the essence of all these human characters kind of in it as well, in its geography. And it's a very interesting neighborhoods up there, because you have people like Gagarin next to certain scientists or whoever it would be. And again, it was a chance to tell stories. Gagarin, of course, is a guy who's quite famous, but other stories like Agnes Marie Clerk, who's an Irish woman, she was very much the Stephen Hawking of her day, because she wrote her generation's version of A Brief History of Time, and she did a lot to make science accessible to common people, which is a very noble purpose, so just for us, we, through this novel specifically, but also through kind of the other stuff we've written, it's about shining a light on stories that have been forgotten or were never given their proper due in their moments, and kind of reinvigorating people's interest in these things. And yeah, so they're all short stories, but it's a novel, so they are connected by this guy investigating who these people are behind the creators. Yeah,
great. And is that one in Spanish?
It is in Spanish, yeah. So maybe Maria can translate that thing at some point. Or we can do it together.
On my list.
And have you written a book in English? Fake News, I assume, is in English.
Well, actually, sorry, Maria. You go ahead there.
No, it's okay. Actually, it's in Spanish. We was in Spanish originally, but fake news is something that we use apart from bulos in Spanish. But fake news is kind of like an expression that I think is used worldwide now in many countries. So it's still called fake news in Spanish. But we also published as an ebook. We published it in English as well. So it's available in Spanish on paperback and in English as an ebook, and both of them are called fake news. But then, the subtitle in Spanish is "Bulos que cambiaron el curso de la historia." So, lies that change the course of history.
Yeah, great. So, I imagine, Maria, it's very difficult to describe a kind of typical day for you both, a day in the life, because I'm assuming every day is completely different because you're so busy doing lots of different things.
I think we're very lucky to, as being a freelancer, everyone will be able to sympathize with this, or empathize depending on. But if you're a freelancer, well, obviously there are some things that are, or if you have your own company, there are some things that are, a bit. Unexpected, or every day is different. You can look at it either way, as a positive or a negative, but for us I think it's definitely a positive, because every day we are doing new things and meeting new people, and especially communicating with prospective writers. And now we're just meeting more and more people here in Madrid and beyond that kind of know each other, so it's sort of word of mouth. People keep reaching out to us with ideas and things like that. So that's all very positive. So yeah, from my point of view, and I'm sure Enda will agree, it's very rewarding. We're really rushed off our feet, but always in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing something that you love, it's sometimes it doesn't feel like work, does it?
Yeah, exactly. That's what the saying says, isn't it? So, it's quite a nice thing.
Yeah. Well, it's been lovely to meet you both virtually, Enda and Maria from Hibernia. If listeners want to find out more about your publishing company, and obviously if they want to see if they can submit some work to you, then they can contact you via your website, which is ybernia or ebernia.com. Thank you both so much for joining us, and I look forward to joining you on your podcast very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.